For as long as we've had beliefs, we've had art. The two are they're inseparable. It's this constant conversation between what we feel deep inside and what we can actually see. So today, we're going to dive into this timeless connection and explore how art has been used for thousands of years to communicate our deepest, most spiritual ideas.
Let's just start with this idea right here because it's so powerful. Long before anyone was writing things down, there were pictures. Art has always been our most basic, fundamental way of sharing complex stories and ideas. It really is a kind of universal translator for the whole human experience.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? If art is a language, how on earth have we used it to talk about the divine, the invisible, the very essence of faith itself? I mean, how do you paint an idea like salvation or sculpt the concept of eternity? To even begin to answer that, we first have to wrap our heads around a fundamental tension, a debate really, that has been raging for thousands of years and has literally shaped the course of entire civilizations. This is the core conflict right here. On one hand, you've got art as this incredibly powerful tool for teaching, for making these abstract spiritual concepts feel real and accessible. But on the other hand, there's this deep, deep fear that the image itself, the statue, the painting, might become the thing you worship, turning a helpful tool into a forbidden idol. And this conflict, it wasn't just some philosophical debate for academics. No way. It forced entire cultures to create this complex set of rules for how to depict, or not depict, the divine. Take the ancient Egyptians. For them, art wasn't really about looking pretty. A statue like this wasn't put in a tomb to be admired. It was basically a piece of spiritual technology. It was meant to be a physical vessel, a tool designed to literally keep alive the soul, or ka, of the person it represented for all of eternity. This art had a job to do. This slide just lays out the dilemma for early Jewish and Christian faiths perfectly. On one side, you have this direct commandment from the Bible, don't make images of God. The fear of idolatry is written right there in the text. But then you've got the practical reality. For a population that, for the most part, couldn't read, pictures were the absolute best tool for sharing their faith stories. It's a massive contradiction. And believe me, this was not just a friendly disagreement. The stakes were life and death. This image here shows the period of iconoclasm in the Byzantine Empire, which literally means image breaking. The emperor himself ordered the destruction of all religious icons because he believed they violated that commandment. This was a state-sponsored war on art. So how did they solve this huge problem? Well, they created a whole new visual language. The first step for many was just to prohibit literal images entirely. The second was to develop this rich vocabulary of symbols. The cross, for example, could represent Christ without actually showing a human figure. And the third step, for those traditions that did allow images, was to create super strict rules, prescribed poses, colors, styles, to make sure the art was a window to the divine, not an idol itself. Okay, now, let's jump forward 1,000 years. We're going from this grand sweep of history to a small church in England right at the turn of the new millennium. This is actually a personal story from the author of our source material, and it shows how these ancient ideas are still incredibly relevant today. So picture this. It's 1999. A community art project called Art 2000 gets created to celebrate 2,000 years of Christ. The exhibition opens in January 2000, and just a month later, the author of this very paper, a man named Mark Condy, goes to see his own painting hanging up on the wall. And this was the venue, St. Nicholas Church on Canvey Island in England. The whole point of the exhibition was simple but really powerful: to give everyday people a chance to express their religious beliefs through art, however they saw fit. And here it is. This is the painting at the very heart of our case study, Sunrise of the Cross, created by Mark Condy. Now, at first glance, it's just this vibrant, really colorful image. But just like those ancient icons we were talking about, every single element here is part of a complex symbolic language. So let's decode it, shall we? The author explains that the butterfly isn't just a butterfly. It represents freedom and purity. The seeds scattered around the cross, they symbolize the seed of potential for faith that exists in every single one of us. The gold center of the cross is the refining fire of God. The rainbow is God's promise, and that Celtic circle behind it all represents both the rising sun and the resurrection. It's an entire sermon in a single image. And for his contribution to this modern dialogue between art and faith, the author received this certificate. His painting, with all of its hidden meaning, was publicly displayed in that church for a full year, continuing that thousands-year-old tradition of using images to communicate what we believe. Okay, let's pull back out and connect all these different threads. What does this journey from ancient Egypt all the way to modern England really tell us about the power of art? Well, ultimately, whether it's a statue meant to house a soul for eternity or a community painting packed with symbols, art has always served as a bridge. It connects our tangible physical world to the intangible world of ideas, beliefs, and faith. It makes the invisible visible. So let's just quickly recap the big takeaways. We've seen how art gives form to spiritual concepts. We've explored that constant negotiation, that fine line between using art as a teaching tool and the fear of idolatry. We've seen that symbolism is the essential language it uses to do all this. And finally, that creating and even just looking at this art is a spiritual journey in and of itself. And that really gets to the heart of it, you know? This quote from the source material just says it perfectly. The story of art isn't just about religion. It's the story of humanity's ongoing struggle to make sense of our world, our place in the universe, and to somehow communicate that understanding to each other. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The tools have changed, for sure, but that basic human impulse hasn't. In our hyper-visual digital world, which is filled with its own complex symbols, I'm talking everything from emojis to AI-generated images. What is the visual language we're creating right now to make sense of our world and to share what we truly believe?